Welcome to Kyle Anthony's UFC betting show. I am Kyle Anthony, and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the prediction show for UFC on ESPN Plus 24, Curtis Blaydes versus Junior Dos Santos. We're going to talk about 3 free plays that we have on this card. We also have option on Wagertalk, so definitely go over there and check it out. Overall, we went last week 4-1, had 1 loss, had a great profitable night. Very excited to start 2020 in this way. Got to keep it going forward. We've got a lot of events coming up. Want to continue to bring in those profits. So we're first really going to dive right into, we're going to dive into our first replay. Our first replay is on the main event of the evening between Curtis Blaydes and Junior Dos Santos. So currently we got the odds. You got Blaydes at a -240. You've got Dos Santos at a +200. And this is really an interesting fight. I'm definitely hearing a lot of different sides to this where, talking to people on Twitter, talking to people, who are interested in the betting side of the UFC. And there's definitely some people who really love Dos Santos. There's people who really love Blaydes. So we're going to dive into it right now. So the first thing we like to do again is go over is 3 fights for each fighter. See what we see if there's a way that one fighter can expose the other fighter, and then find out if the line does make sense to bet. So the first thing we're talking about is Junior Dos Santos. Now, 3 fights ago, he fought Tai Tuivasa. Now, this was a fight here that Tuivasa, he was, kind of that surging star. He's a big heavyweight that can move. And that was something that possibly could give Dos Santos problems. Now, the big thing on Dos Santos is the pressure. You get him, you move forward on him, and he definitely has vulnerability in those spots. And you see here against Tuivasa in that first round, you saw Tuivasa landed. He was landing big shots. He was moving forward. Dos Santos was actually, again, up against the cage. And it's something that you consistently see him do more recently than when he used to, when he was a champion. He really kind of liked to stand in the pocket and trade. And in this spot here, even against Tuivasa, who does have a boxing background, but you saw that Dos Santos was losing some of those exchanges. And that was something where Tuivasa kind of looked to build into that second round. And going into that second round, Tuivasa, again, pushing forward, landing shots. Dos Santos was, he was starting to come together, and there was one little slip up from Tuivasa, which kind of exposed the shot for Dos Santos to land. Dos Santos lands a nice shot, and it did put Tuivasa down, but the odd part of it, and even with him winning that first round, without a doubt, Tuivasa won that first round, and even with winning that first round and he got dropped, Dos Santos gets on top of him, but the fact that Tuivasa from bottom, with Dos Santos having full guard, was throwing punches from the bottom, which is probably one of the worst things you could possibly do, because you will never win those exchanges ever. And Dos Santos, especially who's a big power puncher, ended up landing some big shots, ends up putting Tuivasa away in that second round. But there's definitely some suspect moments within that fight, within that first round, where you saw that there was definitely vulnerability with Dos Santos. 2 fights ago, he fought Derek Lewis. Now, against Derek Lewis, this was another fight here where a guy that's going to give him space. And that, again, goes into what Dos Santos likes. And you've got someone like Derek Lewis who's going to want to box, who's going to want to stand and bang. So in that first round, you did see that there was a lot of exchanges. There were definitely both landing, and I think that, you did see that Dos Santos felt very comfortable, because he loves to have that kind of space, especially someone who's slower with their foot movement, who circles the cage a much slower, like Derek Lewis. And you definitely saw in that first round that he was landing that they were both landing some big shots. But the one big shot that did come from Dos Santos, where he kind of hit him in the stomach, and then Lewis kind of leaned over and then almost played possum, it looked like, and then he threw a big shot and actually dropped Dos Santos in this very awkward exchange. But you did see that I didn't see much on Dos Santos as crisp as he used to be. And in spots where even Lewis was hurt and battered in that first round, he didn't have that killer instinct. He didn't have that, even where Lewis was really like leaning over and almost giving up. I mean, if you really go back and look, it almost looked like Lewis was giving up his entire opportunity for him to basically take the shots, and Dos Santos kind of pitter-pattered shots, and then the round kind of ended. And again, another awkward exchange for me looking at Dos Santos. Going into the second round, again, it was some big shots from Dos Santos. There he looked a little bit better, but already Lewis, who does not have the cardio, who does not have the ability to go deeper into fights, Dos Santos lands some more big shots, does put away Lewis, and again, another not that exciting of a knockout. Yes, he got a win against Tuivasa. Yes, he got a win against Lewis, but those aren't really big stamps. You know, he didn't go out there and yes, again, they are finishes, but they're not the kind of fight that you're used to Dos Santos going in there, working his jab, working his combinations, working his footwork. There was very kind of two sloppy-ish wins, in my opinion, two sloppy-ish wins. Then his most recent fight was against Francis Ngannou, and this was a fight here again. I'm gonna keep saying this again. Was a situation where it was a quick win for Ngannou, where they go out there and you saw where Dos Santos really was trying to stay out of harm's way, because obviously Ngannou has that big power, but it wasn't much that you saw the crispness of the boxing, the footwork, standing outside. And Ngannou again came inside, and even where Lewis missed a shot, and somehow he ends up having his back to Ngannou when they're standing, and a couple shots from behind from Ngannou puts down Junior Dos Santos. That was the end of that fight. That fight ended, I believe it was in the first minute and a half of that first round. So a lot of suspect things there, in my opinion, when you look at the last three fights from Dos Santos. Now going on to the other side, we've got Curtis Blaydes, and 3 fights ago, he fought Francis Ngannou. Now this kind of was the same story here, so you definitely can take it away, but a difference in my opinion in this fight compared to what Dos Santos had was that you had somebody like Blaydes, wrestler. This is a wrestler versus grappler kind of matchup, and this is Ngannou that, you know, does have that power, but it wasn't the big knockout, because you did see that there, you know, Ngannou landed a big shot. Blaydes fell, kind of went down, but he ended up bouncing back up. He got back up. There was kind of another exchange where it looked like that Blaydes was looking to take him down to the ground, and even at the point where the ref called it, Blaydes was standing. I mean, Blaydes even right when they called it, Blaydes was kind of confused. So I definitely believe that was an early stoppage, without a doubt an early stoppage, but there was, you know, not as too much, I believe, in that opinion, you could take away from it, because Blaydes does have a chin. There's no doubt he's got a chin, and he's got that big pressure going forward. So that whole situation there, I would have loved to see how kind of more of that played out, because there, I think, could have been more that you could really cap going into the fight against Dos Santos. But you did see Francis Ngannou got the first round knockout. Then you have 2 fights ago, he fought Justin Willis, and this was a fight here where complete domination for Blaydes. Blaydes from beginning to end continued to take down Willis. There was really nothing that Willis could do, and Willis was really talking up a big game even before this and saying, you know what, he's not going to be able to take me down. I'm going to outbox him. I'm going to move around. And he just had no answers for that pressure that Blaydes brings to the table. So really throughout that entire fight, it was an easy, unanimous decision for Curtis Blaydes, and he gets that victory. And then 2 fights ago, it was another TKO victory, and I'm kind of just going to quickly go over that one just because it was a quick TKO victory for him. Blaydes gets the victory, and there you have it on the 3 plays, 3 fights for each fighter. So with that all being said, and what my take is on what's going to happen here. Now, going over both these guys, obviously, again, you've got Junior Dos Santos, who has that elite boxing, former champion. He's got, you know, normally great footwork, moving from the outside, and sets up a lot with that jab, and goes for that, almost that windmill kind of power punch that he throws when he has that space, and that's what he likes to work. But then you've got on the other side, you've got Blaydes. Blaydes is that top-level wrestler. But the big difference for me here is the fact that you did see some of these guys that Junior Dos Santos was fighting they like that. They gave him that space. And those are the exact kind of things. And then you even saw little parts, even against Tuivasa, where the very small spots where you saw that he did push forward. Dos Santos has this awkward kind of runaway, turtling, shelling up kind of thing that he really has adopted over the last 4 fights. That you've seen him really do that compared to earlier in his career, where he would be more willing to stand up straight upright and stand and bang straight up. And the thing here is, you're not going to get that distance. There is no doubt that Blaydes is going to be leaving no distance at all whatsoever. And that turtling up and that pressure that you're going to see consistently, and I really think within that first round, you're going to see, within that first minute or two, you're going to see Blaydes going in for a shot. I mean, he is not going to waste any time. We've seen him do that in other spots where he's got, you know, he doesn't want to waste time. He doesn't want to waste time in exchange. He did a little bit with Ngannou, and that cost him the fight. I think in this situation here, I think stylistically the matchup is fantastic for Blaydes. I think there's so many great things that Blaydes has. He continues to evolve. He does have a granite chin, even with the fact that against Ngannou, he took Ngannou's couple big shots and he was standing and looked like he was ready to fight. I think that the ref is so used to seeing Ngannou just blast guys with a couple big shots and the fight's over. I think that the fight could have went a little bit further. I think there could have been a lot more going on in that fight. But overall, I really like Blaydes here. Now, we are betting Blaydes at minus 240. That is a little bit higher of a price. I still believe that, again, this is a wrong line. I think that Dos Santos, because he is Dos Santos, I think that's the only reason why he is a plus 200. I think he should be up at the plus 250 range. I think that Blaydes should be up over minus 300. I think the price overall is in a great spot to bet Blaydes. So I am definitely, as one of my plays, betting Curtis Blaydes to win. But I am also going to be betting, and this is going to be my second play. We're going to talk about 3 today. First one is going to be Curtis Blaydes. The second one is going to be for better value. I'm definitely going to be betting also Blaydes by TKO or submission. That's minus 140. I think that's even better value overall. I do not see this going the distance. I think that Blaydes is going to get him to the ground a lot. I think he's going to work him on the ground a lot. I think as soon as he gets him to the ground, you're going to see the turtling up. You're going to be seeing that he can't, as soon as Dos Santos' back is against the cage, that's a lot of the times where that's going to be what Blaydes is going to be doing. You're going to see Blaydes having him up against the cage. You're going to be seeing him, those takedowns. He is got really, really fantastic takedown attempts. And I just don't think that Dos Santos can circle for 5 rounds, standing outside, out-jab him, work his combinations without Blaydes really going in there and taking him down. So as 2 of my plays on the main event, I will be betting Curtis Blaydes at minus 240, and Curtis Blaydes via KO or submission is minus 140. And again, we did the same thing on last week with Conor McGregor. We bet McGregor, and then we bet him as well as knockout. So hopefully we're able to do the same thing here on this main event. Now, the other play that I'm going to talk about here, and I'm not going to dive into the last few fights. I'm not going to really get into all of that. I'm just going to spew out my thoughts overall. A little bit short on time today, so I'm going to just get this one out. So the other play that we will be having is Rafael Dos Anjos versus Michael Chiesa. So we've got RDA versus Chiesa. And this is a fight here. Currently you've got RDA is minus 260, and you've got Chiesa who is plus 210. Now, looking at this fight, I think from a distance, people are really liking Dos Anjos. I mean, there's a lot to like about him. I mean, you talk about a guy who's fought over the last 6 years, has fought some of the best fighters within his few weight classes that are out there. I mean, he's beaten some, he's lost to some, he's lost to some current champions, and he's lost to, even Usman and Covington, and, in Lawler he's fought, he's fought some really, really tough fights. So him to have a record of 29-12, that's respectable overall, because he's been in the game a long time, and he's fought some of the best. But the thing for me here, that when I started to break this fight down, was the fact that, over the last 6 years, Dos Anjos has fought 17 times. Now, that's a lot. That's, you're averaging roughly three fights per year. But the thing that really stuck out to me was, one, yes, he is 1-3 out of his last 4. And like I said, yes, he was fighting Usman and Covington and some of these top level guys that he's losing to. So that's very understandable. But if over the last 5 fights, and this is something that I think at a point when you hit a certain age with an MMA, there's got to be some MMA mileage. There's got to be some wear and tear. There has to be. And you've got a guy like him, over his last 5 fights, out of a possible 25 rounds, he fought 24 of those rounds. And all of those fights were against, he was just getting beaten up, tough fights, wars, took damage, took a lot of damage overall. And that's something that I think going into this fight, I thought that I also didn't like what in his last fight against Leon Edwards. And then Leon Edwards, I'm very high on Leon Edwards. I think there's a lot of great things that he's going to do. I actually think that he has a very good shot to beat Tyron Woodley that they'll be fighting down the road. But this fight here against against Edwards, this fight here though, Edwards was able to take him down multiple times, and I thought that there wasn't very much even tough exchanges. It was easy for really Edwards to get inside, get the body lock, have body control, and take him to the ground. It was, I thought, pretty easy for him to do that. And then not only that, but you saw, in my opinion, his body looked very depleted. I thought that he looked drained. It just didn't look like he had that chiseled body that he used to have. I just feel like things are starting to be the decline overall. And even in that second round, in a 5-round fight against Edwards, in that second round, you saw, and again, if you look back, you saw RDA, he looked exhausted. I mean, he was looking up at the clock, gasping for air already. It did go deep, but he didn't have much in the tank. He's a tough fighter, so he's able to push through that, but I just didn't like anything that I saw over the last 3 to 4 fights from RDA. Now, the price tag is at -260. That's kind of high, in my opinion, for that as well. But you look over to Chiesa on the other side. Now, I am not the highest on Chiesa. I'm not saying that Chiesa is some world beater. But since he's moved up in weight, he's won his last 2 fights, and I thought that he has filled in really, really well. If you look back a couple other fights, he, in the same situation, he's looked very frail, looked skinny. He's talked about it a lot too, that, the weight cut has just been really tough for him. He's not been able to really focus on his opponent and his skill set, just worrying about making weight because he is a taller fighter. So for him to move up in weight, him to feel more comfortable, and of course it's an interview, they can say anything, it doesn't mean that, what they say is concrete. But I think there's a lot that comes with that. So you've got a guy here who is a +210, who is a younger fighter, who feels really good about the weight that now that he's moved up into. And not only that, but I see so much going on with Chiesa. Yes, there's, he's not, again, he's not the finished product. He's not some, champion. But I like what I see that he continues to elevate through the last few fights. And I think he's getting a little bit more well-rounded overall. And the depletion of the body of RDA compared to what I've seen so far from Chiesa, with a lot of the advantages physically, with his height, I just like a lot of that, what's going on overall. I think there's absolutely value on Chiesa here. I may be on an island by myself with Chiesa because I feel like a lot of people are on RDA, but this is a one here that I think this is great value. I think this actually should be a slight favorite for RDA. I feel like he should be maybe a -130, -135, but a -260, pushing up to a 3-to-1 favorite, I think is just way off. Yes, RDA, again, known fighter, fought some tough fights, but I really feel like this is a great fight where Chiesa has an opportunity to go out there and win this fight. So at a +210, I am taking Michael Chiesa to defeat RDA in Saturday night's UFC event. So those are my 3 free plays. You can check me out on Wagertalk. I also have plays listed over there. Definitely take a look. But the 3 free plays we're going to be having is Curtis Blaydes -240. Also Curtis Blaydes TKO or submission, which is minus 145. And then you've got Michael Chiesa to defeat RDA plus 210. Those are the free plays. Definitely let me know what you guys think. Give it a thumbs up. Definitely comment down below. I always like having the conversation. What you guys are betting. Let me know your thoughts on my plays, your past plays, whatever it may be. Enjoy the conversation down there. Definitely follow me on Twitter at Kyle Anthony UFC. And we will have the the bet review show out on Sunday or Monday, going over these plays as well as my Wagertalk plays. So hopefully we can have another solid night. Again, 4-1 last week. Want to keep that going. So there you have it. This is Kyle Anthony's UFC betting show, and I'll see you next time.